Hey everybody, thanks for checking out this World of Tanks video, and thanks for playing World of Tanks. I want to admit a couple of things here as we get going. Let's just, acknowledge them openly or whatever. First of all, I think one of you guys on our team who survived the entirety of the match was basically AFK. It doesn't seem like he moved his vehicle at all. I didn't look at the stats or see if the turret was turning at all or anything in particular like that, but it does seem like the vehicle pretty much stays in the exact same spot the entire time. Nevertheless, the vehicle survives. I also want to just acknowledge that at least here at the beginning, at least early on in the match, that there are probably 2, 3, 4 different enemy vehicles that kind of make things pretty easy for us here. Nevertheless, I want to with this video just kind of demonstrate how to deal with something like 7 or 8 of the team that you're on. Basically just more or less staying at spawn, or at least really close to spawn, throughout the entirety of the match. Kind of how to deal with that, or what that's all about. As you can see here at the beginning, just a couple of light tanks coming in, giving us some shots. So it's maybe good for the enemy artillery in a way to get these views. Get a couple of quick kills here, for the enemy team. Nevertheless, those guys are not long to survive. I want to bring up a possible scenario. And that scenario is, let's say, 15 vehicles on your team, 15 tanks on your team, and a total of 15 tanks on the enemy team, kind of like World of Tanks. Now what if in World of Tanks, the 15 vehicles on your team set up in such a way that they were all more or less able to cover for one another. They were all more or less able to focus their fire on kind of the same spot, more or less. And then what if in World of Tanks, those 15 enemy vehicles, 1 by 1 or 2 by 2 or even 3 at a time or 4 at a time, drove their vehicles into that space where all 15 vehicles on your team were able to fire into at the exact same time. Or let's say it was even 6 or 8 vehicles on your team that were more or less able to cover for each other, and more or less able to focus their fire on that space in which the enemy vehicles kind of more or less one after another drive their vehicles into. What you get there is basically a team of 15 enemy vehicles that, one after another, disappear in a cloud of the dust from your allies' fire. And there might be no single more effective way for a team of 15 tanks to eliminate an opposing team of 15 tanks. Now in this match here, as you can kind of see, it's starting to shape up. There are about 7 or 8 of us that kind of spontaneously kind of fortify up, if you will, here near our spawn. Find some positions that are defensible, find some positions at which the enemy vehicles don't readily have shots on them, don't have shots on our vehicles. And in order to get shots on our vehicles, they have to roll out more or less in in fire of our allies, their enemies. You know, a lot of people find fault with their allies hanging back or sitting near spawn or not charging forward or something like that. I don't think that it necessarily matters where on the map you're at. The most important thing that matters, two things. I think, I'm not sure I'm able to say here at this moment which necessarily is more important. But two things in terms of, let's say, winning the match. One of those is, I would suggest the the green guys, the team that you're on, being able to cover each other, focus their fire, that kind of thing. So more or less stay in the same area, be safe from enemy fire, and be able to fire on the enemy vehicles together. Focus the fire together on the enemy vehicles that move into the position that you've fortified. As the enemy vehicles move forward, trying to get shots on your guys, get shots on the green team. The green guys, of course, are fortified and able to focus their fire and more or less quickly eliminate each of those enemy vehicles that comes into the positions of the green team. Again, wherever on the map that is, that doesn't necessarily need to be near the base. Now the second thing, the second important factor, and here you see in the match kind of an example of making sure that I've got some foliage cover between me and that enemy vehicle. That's something that's pretty much been going on throughout, but that tree there was a pretty stark example of that. The other factor that I think is perhaps the most important in standard matches in World of Tanks, maybe in any match in World of Tanks that has a capture point, is to always be within range to roll your vehicle back toward that capture point to be able to fire on the enemy vehicles that are in it, so that you don't lose the match by enemy capturing. Again, those are just in terms of matches on World of Tanks that have capture points. Those are the two most important factors to my mind, and I could be wrong. I could figure things out differently as I progress through the game and learn things in new ways, or as people explain things to me in different ways. Right now, those two most important things, as I see it, to winning the matches that have one or more capture points, is first of all being able to support one another, being able to focus fire safely, doing those things safely, and second of all, being able to fire on enemy vehicles that move into the space of that capture point, so that your team does not lose to being captured out. Well, and that's pretty much what I wanted to demonstrate here. Demonstrate an example of a team that spontaneously, more or less, sits near their spawn together in a fortified, safe way, focuses their fire on the enemy vehicles pretty much one after another, and wins the match. Now, at the same time, yeah, we did have a few of those enemy vehicles that just kind of drove on in and didn't really have much of a care for their own hit points. There were, at the same time, probably an equal number of enemy vehicles that took care of their hit points and were very careful about moving into combat against us. And there were, at the same time, I think it's worth pointing out, there were a lot of our guys who just kind of drove off and got themselves shot up, so it wasn't necessarily like one team was doing well and the other was not. Nevertheless, we had guys in some pretty safe positions, able to focus their fire, win the match. Thanks for taking a look at the video, guys. If you have any comments on ways that this match could have been better, or on this theme in general, this theme of winning matches in general, leave some comments. But yeah, thanks for taking a look at this video. Thanks for playing World of Tanks.